The arrival and first contact. The morning sky over New Mexico shimmered with an unnatural light. Commander stood outside the armory at Fort Bliss, her coffee growing cold in her hand as she stared upward. The stars were disappearing one by one, swallowed by something vast and impossible. Within minutes, the entire southwestern horizon was blocked by ships, hundreds of them, each one larger than any aircraft carrier humanity had ever built. Her radio crackled to life. "All personnel report to stations immediately." "This is not a drill." Elena dropped her coffee cup and ran toward the motor pool. Around her, soldiers scrambled in every direction, their faces showing the same mixture of fear and disbelief she felt churning in her gut. She had spent 20 years in the army, commanded tank units through 3 different conflicts, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. The aliens made their intentions clear within the hour. Every television screen, every phone, every digital display on Earth flickered and showed the same image. A being stood before them, humanoid in shape but covered in scales that shifted between purple and black. Its eyes were too large, too bright, and when it spoke, the words came through in perfect English, Chinese, Arabic, and every other language simultaneously. "People of Earth, I am High Commander Zarketh of the Zinthari Empire. Your world has been chosen for integration into our domain. We have observed your primitive civilization and found it quaint. Your weapons are relics. Your defenses are laughable. We offer you one choice. Surrender now, and your species will be allowed to exist as servants. Resist, and you will be eliminated." The broadcast showed footage of human military bases, focusing mockingly on tanks, jets, and artillery. Zarketh's voice dripped with contempt. "These metal boxes you call war machines, they belong in museums. Our technology has evolved beyond such crude mechanisms millennia ago. You fire explosive projectiles while we harness pure energy. You crawl on treads while we glide on gravitational fields. Surrender is your only logical path." The broadcast ended, leaving Earth in stunned silence. Elena reached the motor pool where her battalion was already assembling. Her executive officer, Lieutenant Marcus Chen, jogged up to her with a tablet displaying emergency orders. "Commander, we're mobilizing everything. Washington says no surrender." "Good," Elena replied, her jaw set firm. "Get every tank operational. I want full ammunition loads and double-check all systems." Marcus hesitated. "Ma'am, did you see what they said about our equipment? What if they're right? What if we're just throwing lives away?" Elena turned to face him directly. "Marcus, I've been driving tanks since before you were born. I know what these machines can do. Those aliens, they've never faced anything like an M1 Abrams, I guarantee it. Now get to work." Across the base, crews swarmed over their vehicles. The rumble of diesel engines filled the air as tank after tank roared to life. Eleanor's own tank, a beast she had nicknamed Iron Phoenix, sat waiting. Her crew was already performing final checks. Sergeant Ray Thompson, her gunner, gave her a thumbs up from the turret. Driver specialist Amy Park revved the engine, sending a satisfying growl through the machine. Loader Private Jackson Hayes secured the ammunition racks with practiced efficiency. "Everyone ready?" Elena asked as she climbed into the commander's position. "Ready as we'll ever be to fight aliens," Thompson replied with a nervous grin. The orders came through at 1400 hours. Alien ground forces were landing in force near El Paso. Human forces were to engage and delay, while civilian evacuations continued. Elena's battalion, along with 3 others, moved out to meet them. The aliens arrived in vehicles that seemed to defy physics. Sleek craft that hovered 3 feet off the ground, their surfaces smooth and reflective, like liquid metal. They moved in perfect formations, completely silent except for a low humming that made Elena's teeth ache. Behind them came walkers, 12-foot-tall machines that strode forward on 2 legs, their weapon systems glowing with an eerie blue light. "This is actual to all units," Elena broadcast. "Remember your training. Use the terrain. Stay mobile. They want to fight in the open, but we're going to make them work for every inch." The alien force advanced toward the city, apparently expecting no real resistance. That changed when the first shell from Elena's tank screamed across the desert and slammed into the lead hover vehicle. The explosion was spectacular, far more devastating than Elena had expected. The alien craft simply disintegrated, pieces scattering across the sand. For a moment, everything stopped. The alien formation halted, as if shocked that the humans had actually fired back. Then chaos erupted. Energy beams lanced across the battlefield, striking the ground where tanks had been seconds before. But Elena's crews were already moving, using dunes and rocky outcrops for cover. The aliens fired at where they thought tanks would be, but Earth's vehicles were faster and more maneuverable than the hovering craft expected. "Target the walkers," Elena ordered. "Aim for the joints." Thompson adjusted his sights and fired. The Sabot round, a dart of depleted uranium traveling at over a mile per second, hit a walker in the knee joint. The alien machine staggered, sparks flying from the impact point, then toppled sideways. It tried to stand but couldn't, one leg completely disabled. Around the battlefield, other tanks were discovering the same vulnerability. The aliens had powerful energy shields, but they were designed to disperse energy weapons and explosive blasts. Against solid projectiles moving at hypersonic speeds, the shields did nothing. The rounds punched straight through. Another hover vehicle exploded as a tank from 3rd Platoon scored a direct hit, then another. The alien formation was breaking apart, their perfect coordination shattered by an enemy that refused to fight the way they expected. Elena watched through her periscope as an alien walker turned toward her position. Its weapons charged, the glow intensifying. "Park, reverse now." The Abrams lurched backward, just as a beam of superheated plasma carved through the space where they had been. The sand turned to glass instantly, but Thompson was already returning fire, and the walker collapsed with its torso torn open. "They're pulling back," someone shouted over the radio. It was true. The alien force which had advanced so confidently just minutes before was retreating. Their vehicles limped away, trailing smoke and sparks. Of the 40 craft that had attacked, fewer than 20 were still operational. Elena allowed herself a moment of satisfaction, but she knew this was just the beginning. The aliens would be back, and next time they would be prepared. But Earth had sent a message. Humanity would not go quietly into the night. As the sun set over the desert battlefield, Elena stood on top of Iron Phoenix and looked at the wreckage scattered across the sand. Human casualties had been light, surprisingly so. The aliens had underestimated them completely, assumed that superior technology guaranteed victory. They had learned a hard lesson today. Her radio crackled with General Morrison's voice from command. "Outstanding work, Commander Vasquez. Early reports from other engagement zones show similar results. The aliens are regrouping in orbit. Intelligence suggests they're calling for reinforcements." "Understood, sir. My battalion is ready for the next round." "I know you are, Commander. I know you are." That night, as crews repaired damaged vehicles and loaded fresh ammunition, Elena gathered her officers. They studied maps and discussed tactics, preparing for what would come next. The aliens had technology that seemed like magic, but humanity had something just as powerful, the ability to adapt, to think creatively, to turn disadvantages into advantages. In orbit above, the Zinthari fleet gathered. High Commander Zarketh watched replays of the battle, his scaled face unreadable. His second-in-command, Sub-Commander Vexra, stood nearby. "How is this possible?" Vexra asked. "Their weapons are primitive kinetic throwers. Our shields were designed for energy weapons," Zarketh interrupted coldly. "We have not faced solid projectiles in combat for 3,000 years. Not since we conquered the Bracken system. What are your orders, High Commander?" Zarketh's eyes gleamed with something between anger and fascination. "Double the ground forces. Deploy heavy walkers and siege platforms. These humans want to fight. We will show them what the full might of the Zinthari Empire looks like." But even as he gave the orders, a small part of Zarketh wondered. The Empire had conquered 47 worlds. Every species they encountered used energy weapons, plasma cannons, laser arrays, particle beams. It was the natural evolution of warfare. These humans, still throwing chunks of metal at high speeds, were an anomaly that had just destroyed a significant portion of his attack force. Back on Earth, Elena finally allowed herself to rest. She sat in Iron Phoenix's commander seat, the familiar smell of gun oil and diesel fuel oddly comforting. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, fiercer battles. But tonight, humanity had proven something important. They could fight back. They could win, and they would make the Zinthari Empire regret ever coming to Earth. In her dreams, Elena saw the battles to come. She saw cities burning and soldiers dying. But she also saw something the aliens couldn't imagine: Earth's armies standing firm, refusing to break, fighting with a desperation and creativity born from defending their only home. When she woke before dawn, the resolve in her heart was absolute. The Zinthari Empire had come to Earth expecting an easy victory. Instead, they had found an enemy unlike any they had faced before, an enemy that turned their technological superiority into a liability, that adapted and innovated with terrifying speed. The war was far from over. But the tide was turning, and the galaxy was about to learn that humanity, despite its primitive weapons and crude technology, was the most dangerous species of all. Victory and legacy. The sky over Beijing burned with a crimson glow as the Zinthari Empire deployed their ultimate weapon. Commander Elena Vasquez watched from 10 miles away as the colossal structure descended through Earth's atmosphere. It dwarfed everything humanity had ever built, a floating city of metal and energy that measured over 2 miles across. "Command is calling it the Devastator," Lieutenant Chen said, his voice hollow. "Intelligence says it's designed to crack planetary crusts. They're going to use it to destroy every major city on Earth simultaneously." Elena studied the massive fortress through her binoculars. Energy flickered along its surface, and countless smaller craft swarmed around it like insects. This was High Commander Zarketh's answer to 3 months of humiliating defeats. If humanity wouldn't surrender, he would simply eliminate them entirely. "How long until it's operational?" Elena asked. 72 hours. They need to establish a stable orbit and charge the main weapon systems 3 days. That was all the time humanity had left. The previous months had seen battles across every continent. The Zinthari Empire had committed enormous resources to conquering Earth, and humanity had made them pay for every inch of ground. But the cost had been devastating. Major cities lay in ruins. Military forces were stretched beyond their limits. Ammunition stocks were critically low. And now this, a weapon that could end everything. General Morrison's voice crackled through Elena's radio. "Commander Vasquez, you're needed at forward command immediately." Elena found Morrison in a reinforced bunker outside what remained of Beijing's outskirts. Around a holographic table stood representatives from every nation's military, their faces grim. The hologram displayed the Devastator in precise detail, collected from satellite imagery and reconnaissance drones that had survived long enough to transmit data. "Ladies and gentlemen," Morrison began, "we have one chance. Maybe our scientists have analyzed the fortress's structure. The outer hull is impenetrable, but there's a shield barrier around the lower section that allows supply craft to enter and exit." A Chinese general leaned forward. "What kind of shield?" "Energy-based, like all their technology. Designed to stop plasma weapons, missiles, and energy attacks." Morrison looked directly at Elena. "But our researchers believe it won't stop slow-moving solid objects." Elena felt everyone's eyes turn to her. "You want to drive tanks through that shield. We want you to lead an assault force into that fortress and destroy it from within." "It's a suicide mission, Commander. I won't order you to go." Elena studied the hologram. The fortress was heavily defended by automated weapon systems and thousands of alien troops. Getting inside would be nearly impossible. Getting out would be completely impossible. But if they didn't try, Earth died anyway. "How do we get up there?" she asked. A woman in a lab coat stepped forward. "We've been reverse engineering captured alien hover technology. We can't build their weapons, but we can replicate their gravitational propulsion on a basic level. Enough to lift your tanks to the fortress's entry level. How many tanks can you modify? Working around the clock?" "Maybe 20 by the deadline." Elena nodded slowly. "Then we'll need volunteers and every piece of ammunition we can carry." The next 70 hours were a blur of preparation. Engineers worked frantically to attach salvaged alien propulsion systems to modified tank chassis. Ammunition factories ran non-stop, producing every round they could manage. And across what remained of Earth's military, soldiers volunteered for the mission, knowing they wouldn't come back. Elena stood before her assembled force on the morning of the 3rd day. 20 tanks, their crews young and old, experienced and fresh. Every face showed fear, but none showed hesitation. "You all know what we're facing," Elena said simply. "That fortress up there was built to destroy planets. If we fail, Earth dies. But if we succeed, we'll show the entire galaxy that humanity cannot be broken." She paused, looking at each crew in turn. "It's been an honor serving with all of you. The modified tanks lifted off at dawn. The sensation was surreal, Elena thought, as Iron Phoenix rose into the sky on columns of rippling gravitational force. They climbed higher and higher, moving in formation toward the massive fortress that blotted out the sun. Alien fighters intercepted them immediately. Energy beams lanced through the air, and 2 tanks exploded before they reached the fortress's shield perimeter. But the others kept climbing, their own guns returning fire when targets came within range, approaching the shield. Hemi Park called out from the driver's position. "All units maintain speed," Elena transmitted. "Don't slow down for anything." The shield appeared as a shimmering curtain of blue energy. Elena held her breath as Iron Phoenix crossed the threshold. For a moment, resistance pushed against them, like driving through water. Then they were through inside the fortress's lower hangar. Chaos erupted immediately. Alien security forces opened fire from every direction, but 20 tanks, even in an enclosed space, were formidable. Helena's force spread out, each tank engaging targets while pushing deeper into the structure. "Thompson, target that support column." The gunner fired, and the massive pillar exploded. Part of the ceiling collapsed, crushing alien reinforcements and blocking one avenue of approach. Around the hangar, other tanks were doing the same, using their weapons to reshape the battlefield. "Command says the fortress's main reactor is 3 levels up," Chen reported, studying tactical data from headquarters. "We need to find the lift systems." Elena's tank rumbled forward, crushing alien equipment and dodging energy blasts. She spotted a massive cargo elevator designed for moving supplies and directed her force toward it. Half the tanks formed a defensive perimeter, while the others loaded onto the platform. The elevator ride up was nightmarish. Aliens fired down from above, while the tanks on the elevator returned fire upward. Another 3 tanks were destroyed before they reached the 2nd level. On the 3rd level, they found the reactor. It was a massive sphere of contained energy, crackling with power that made Elena's hair stand on end. Alien engineers fled at the sight of human tanks rolling into the chamber. "Place all remaining charges around the reactor core," Elena ordered. "Set timers for 5 minutes. That should give us enough time to—" "Commander, the lifts are destroyed," Chen interrupted. "The aliens collapsed them behind us. There's no way back down." Elena felt her heart sink, though she had known this moment would come. "Then we make sure this counts." Set the charges. Her crews worked with grim efficiency, placing every explosive they had around the reactor's housing. Meanwhile, the remaining tanks formed a defensive circle, holding off waves of alien troops trying to retake the chamber. As the timer counted down, Elena opened a final transmission to Earth. "Morrison, this is Vasquez. Charges are set. The fortress will be destroyed in 4 minutes." "Elena," Morrison's voice was thick with emotion. "Thank you. All of you. The whole world is watching. You've saved us. Tell them it was worth it," Elena replied. She looked at her crew, at Thompson and Park and Hayes, all of them calm despite knowing what came next. "Tell them Earth doesn't surrender." High Commander Zarketh felt the explosions before his senses confirmed them. The Devastator, his ultimate weapon, his guarantee of victory, was tearing itself apart from within. Impossibly, the humans had penetrated its defenses and destroyed the reactor core. "All hands evacuate the fortress," he ordered, but it was too late. The reactor went critical, and the Devastator exploded with the force of a small sun. The shockwave scattered the Zinthari fleet like leaves in a storm. On Earth, billions of people watched the sky light up as the fortress died. They saw the alien fleet, damaged and demoralized, begin to withdraw. They saw their enemies, who had seemed invincible, retreating from a species they had mocked as primitive. In the weeks that followed, the Zinthari Empire officially withdrew from Earth. The cost had become too high, the casualties too great. High Commander Zarketh was recalled to the homeworld in disgrace. The Empire's reputation across the galaxy suffered a blow it would never fully recover from. But the story didn't end there. Word of Earth's resistance spread through the galactic community. Other species that had suffered under Zinthari rule began to question their overlords. Rebellions sparked on a dozen worlds. The Empire, which had ruled unchallenged for millennia, suddenly found itself fighting wars on multiple fronts, and they were fighting species that had learned from humanity's example. The turning tide. The Zinthari Empire's second assault came 3 days later, and it came with overwhelming force. High Commander Zarketh had tripled his ground forces and deployed weapon systems that had crushed rebellions on a dozen worlds. This time there would be no mistakes, no underestimation of the primitives below. Commander Elena Vasquez watched the alien fleet descend through layers of storm clouds over the Rocky Mountains. Her battalion had been repositioned to Colorado, joining forces from across the United States in a desperate defense of the Central Corridor. If the aliens broke through here, they would split the continent in two. They really don't like losing, Lieutenant Chen observed, standing beside Elena on a ridge overlooking the valley. Would you? Elena replied. She raised her binoculars and counted the incoming craft. Too many, far too many. Get everyone into position. We're using Plan Delta. Plan Delta was built on a simple principle. Make the aliens come to them through terrain that negated their technological advantages. The mountain passes were narrow, rocky, and filled with positions where tanks could hide, fire, and relocate before return fire arrived. It was guerrilla warfare, adapted for mechanized units. The first wave of alien hover vehicles entered the valley with their weapons already charging. They moved in tight formation, shields overlapping to create a nearly impenetrable barrier. Behind them, massive walkers strode forward, these ones larger than anything humanity had seen before. Their legs were thicker, armored with plates that glowed with defensive energy fields. Elena waited. Patience was crucial. Let them commit to the valley. Let them think they were pushing through weak resistance. All units, hold fire, she transmitted. Wait for my signal. The aliens advanced deeper into the valley. Their sensors swept the area but found nothing. The human tanks were powered down, hidden behind rocks and beneath camouflage netting. From orbit, they would be invisible. When the alien force reached the designated kill zone, Elena gave the order. All units engage. 30 tanks opened fire simultaneously from positions all around the valley. The sound was apocalyptic, a thunderous barrage that echoed off the mountain walls. Alien hover vehicles exploded in sequence, their shield generators overwhelmed by the sheer volume of incoming fire. But the heavy walkers were different. Elena watched her rounds impact their armor and deflect or detonate prematurely. These new machines had been specifically designed to counter kinetic weapons. Adjust targeting, she shouted. Aim for the sensor clusters on their heads. Thompson sent a round screaming toward the nearest walker. It struck the machine's head assembly, and suddenly the walker was staggering blindly, its weapons firing randomly into the mountains. Other tanks followed suit, and within minutes, 3 of the massive walkers were disabled. Then the siege platforms arrived. They descended from the clouds like falling buildings, massive rectangular craft covered in weapon emplacements. Elena had never seen anything like them. They were flying fortresses, and when they opened fire, the entire valley lit up with energy beams. Scatter, Elena ordered. Don't let them target you. Iron Phoenix's engine roared as Amy Park threw the tank into motion. A plasma beam struck the ground where they had been, melting rock into flowing lava. Around the valley, other tanks were doing the same, racing from position to position while continuing to fire on the ground forces. But the siege platforms were too powerful. One by one, human tanks were being destroyed. Elena watched 2nd Platoon's commander, Captain Rodriguez, die when his tank took a direct hit. The explosion was so intense that nothing remained but a crater. We can't stay here, Chen shouted over the command frequency. We need to fall back. Elena's mind raced. Retreat was death. The aliens would chase them across open ground and slaughter them. But staying meant being destroyed by the siege platforms. There had to be another option. Then she saw it. The siege platforms were maintaining a fixed altitude, probably to keep their weapons systems stable for accurate fire. They hovered roughly 200 feet above the valley floor, high enough to avoid ground fire, low enough for their weapons to be effective. But what if they could be brought down? All units, this is Vasquez, she transmitted. Target the siege platform's underside propulsion systems. Concentrated fire maximum rate. Commander, our rounds won't penetrate that armor. Someone protested. We're not trying to penetrate. We're trying to destabilize. Fire at will. Every operational tank turned their guns upward and began firing. Round after round slammed into the underside of the nearest siege platform. Individually, the impacts did nothing, but collectively, they created a hammering effect that disrupted the platform's gravitational stabilizers. The massive craft began to wobble. Its weapons fire became erratic as it struggled to compensate. Elena watched the platform's movements become more violent, swinging side to side. Keep firing. It's working. More tanks joined the barrage. The siege platform's stabilizers couldn't handle the sustained kinetic impacts. With a sound like tearing metal, the craft tilted 45 degrees. Its weapon systems automatically shut down to prevent firing on friendly forces below. And then it fell. The impact was catastrophic. The siege platform crashed into the valley floor, crushing dozens of alien hover vehicles and 2 walkers beneath its bulk. The explosion that followed sent a mushroom cloud rising into the sky. The alien advance stopped. For the first time since the invasion began, the Zinthari forces hesitated. Their formation collapsed as units pulled back to regroup. "Press the advantage," Elena ordered. "Drive them back." The remaining human tanks surged forward, firing as they moved. The aliens, their confidence shattered, and their command structure disrupted, retreated up the valley. By nightfall, the human forces had reclaimed the entire pass. High Commander Zarketh watched the retreat from his flagship with growing fury. Beside him, Sub-Commander Vexra remained silent, knowing that any comment might draw the High Commander's wrath. "Explain to me," Zarketh said quietly, his voice more dangerous for its calmness, "how a species that has not even left its own solar system continues to defeat our forces." "High Commander, their tactics are unconventional. They do not fight as civilized species fight. They use terrain, they hide, they strike from unexpected angles. They fight like vermin," Zarketh spat. "Like insects defending a nest. Perhaps that is why they succeed. Our forces train for honorable combat, ship to ship, walker to walker. The humans have no honor. They use deception and enough." Zarketh turned to face his second. "I want every tactical database from the last 5,000 years searched. Find me any species that fought like these humans. Find me how they were defeated. At once, High Commander." As Vexra hurried away, Zarketh returned to watching the planet below. The Empire had ruled the galaxy for millennia. They had crushed countless rebellions and integrated hundreds of species. Earth should have been a simple conquest, finished in days. Instead, it was becoming the Empire's most significant military embarrassment in recorded history. On Earth, Elena stood among her exhausted crews. They had won a major victory, but at a cost. 12 tanks destroyed, 43 soldiers dead. Each loss weighed on her, but there was no time to grieve. Intelligence reports indicated the aliens were massing for another attack. General Morrison visited the front lines that evening, arriving by helicopter with a team of advisors. He found Elena overseeing repairs to Iron Phoenix, where a glancing plasma blast had scorched the armor. "Commander Vasquez, what you did today was remarkable. The entire world is watching. You've given people hope." "With respect, sir, hope doesn't stop alien warships. We need more ammunition, more spare parts, and more tanks. We're bleeding equipment faster than we can replace it." Morrison nodded grimly. "Production facilities are running 24/7. We're converting civilian factories to military production. But you're right, we need to buy time." He paused. "Washington is considering a negotiated settlement." Eleanor's head snapped up. "Surrender?" "Not surrender. A ceasefire. Give the aliens something they want in exchange for withdrawing. General, these aliens view us as insects. They're not interested in negotiation, only domination. The moment we show weakness, they'll crush us. Then what do you suggest?" Elena looked across the valley at the still-burning wreckage of the siege platform. "We hit them harder. We make this invasion so costly that they decide Earth isn't worth the trouble. Every species has a breaking point, even these Zinthari." Morrison studied her for a long moment. "You really think we can win this?" "I think we don't have a choice but to try." The general nodded slowly. "Then I'll make sure you get everything you need." "Give them hell, Commander." That night, as Elena finally allowed herself a few hours of rest, she thought about what lay ahead. The Zinthari would come again, probably with even more forces. But each battle taught humanity more about how to fight them. Each engagement revealed new weaknesses in their tactics and technology. The aliens had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years, but they had grown complacent. They expected conquered species to roll over, to accept their superiority. Humanity was proving different. 6 months after the battle, Earth received its first official contact from non-hostile aliens, representatives from the Kalarian Republic, a confederation of species that had long resented Zinthari dominance, requested permission to establish diplomatic relations. General Morrison, now overseeing Earth's reconstruction, and new space defense initiatives, greeted the Kalarian ambassador personally. "We watched your war," the ambassador said, its translated words carrying notes of respect. "We watched you defeat an empire with weapons we abandoned centuries ago. You taught the galaxy an important lesson. Technology alone does not guarantee victory." Morrison smiled sadly. "We paid a heavy price for that lesson. The best lessons always cost dearly. But because of your sacrifice, the galaxy is changing. The Zinthari Empire is crumbling. Oppressed species are rising up, and they're all asking the same question. If humans could resist, why can't we?" In the months and years that followed, Earth became a symbol, not of technological superiority or military might, but of determination, adaptability, and the refusal to accept defeat. The planet that had been marked for easy conquest became the catalyst for galactic revolution. Memorials were built for those who fell defending Earth. Commander Elena Vasquez and her final assault force were honored above all others, their names carved into monuments in every major city. The tank that had seemed so primitive to the Zinthari became a symbol of human resilience. Replicas displayed in museums across the recovering world. But perhaps the greatest legacy was the change in human consciousness. Humanity had faced extinction and emerged stronger. They had looked into the void of galactic power and refused to blink. They had proven to themselves that they belonged among the stars not despite their limitations, but because of how they overcame them. New tank designs incorporated lessons learned from the war. Space defense systems were built using both human engineering and carefully studied alien technology. Earth prepared itself not for submission, but for true partnership with the galactic community. And across the galaxy, the Zinthari Empire continued to collapse, not because of external forces, but because their foundation of fear and superiority had been shattered. Earth had shown everyone that the Empire could be beaten, and once that belief took hold, their downfall was inevitable. General Morrison stood on the observation deck of Earth's first orbital defense station, looking down at the blue marble below. So much had been lost, so many lives sacrificed, but humanity had survived, and in surviving had changed the course of galactic history. His aide approached with the day's reports. Among them was a message from the Kalarian Republic. 3 more species had successfully revolted against Zinthari rule. The Empire was abandoning outer territories, pulling back toward their core worlds. "It's really happening," the aide said quietly. "The Empire is falling," Morrison nodded, "because Elena Vasquez and thousands like her refused to let Earth fall. They showed the galaxy what determination looks like." He thought about those final moments, about Elena's last transmission. She had known she wouldn't survive, but she had gone anyway because Earth needed someone to stand against the darkness. And in standing, she had lit a fire that spread across the stars. The war was over. Earth had won not through superior technology, but through the indomitable human spirit. The galaxy would never forget the species that defeated an empire with primitive weapons and unbreakable will, and humanity would never forget the price of that victory or the heroes who paid it. The story of Earth's resistance would be told for generations, across countless worlds and species. A testament to the truth that no enemy is truly invincible, no cause truly lost as long as someone is willing to fight. The Galactic Empire had scoffed at human weapons. Now they faced extinction, and Earth stood ready to face whatever came next. If you're ready to see humanity's wrath obliterate the Galactic Empire, hit that like button. Comment below and tell us, how far do you think humanity's weapons will go in this war? Make sure to subscribe and ring the notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter in this epic HFY saga. Humanity's vengeance has only just begun, and you won't want to miss a single moment. Comment for next part.